All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. How's day 2? It's good? That's good. Fantastic. This is number T04, Utility Industry Embracing Quality for Major Gains. And this is Mr. Jim Adamson. So I'll introduce Mr. Adamson. I'll just remind everyone also to put phones on vibrate or silent during the discussion. Our exits are out the back. Are there any up here? Or you could leave out here in an emergency as well. Okay. So Mr. Adamson is the Director and Head of Supplier Quality Assurance Reporting to the Vice President of Supply Chain Management. The SQA organization addresses supplier continuous improvement, qualification of new products and manufacturing sites through their certified quality engineers, QMS auditors, and inspection groups. SQA covers material for gas and electric T&D, solar, hydro, and fossil fuel. During his time in this role, Jim's organization became the industry leader for supplier quality assurance and the first quality organization in the industry to become ISO 9001 certified. The quality programs implemented gained PG&E the position of top decile performance for highest material quality, with these programs being proactively shared within the utility industry. Prior to this role, Mr. Adamson developed supplier quality programs for future nuclear fuel designs. Preceding this, he spent 20 years developing supplier quality for future vehicle platforms supplied by Mazda and Ford. Mr. Adamson brings business management, leadership, quality programs, and problem-solving skills developed over 29 years in multiple industries. Let's welcome him this morning.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann, for that fantastic introduction. Yes, I am Jim Adamson from Pacific Gas and Electric Utility. They're out of California, headquartered in San Francisco. This is the first time, so you're an elite group here, because this is the first time a utility has presented at the ASQ World Conference for supplier quality assurance for electric and gas transmission and distribution. The reason why I know that is because it's the first time for a utility to have a supplier quality assurance organization that covers those areas. So it's very different. It was a surprise to me working in automotive, Ford and Mazda, for 20 years, developing vehicles, applying Deming, Duran, Taguchi, all the Six Sigma tools, for many years, and constantly improving on those things, moving to nuclear for developing new fuel designs, and then coming here to PG&E to find out that it's a quality control type of activity that they do rather than a quality assurance. So what low-hanging fruit is just amazing. So I'd like to encourage everyone here, if you haven't had an opportunity to be in a utility like some of us here, it's a great place to introduce massive change and really reap those that low-hanging fruit that's out there. And that's what we'll talk about today, is about applying what you've learned, over the many years of being in quality, and applying that to the utility to see what happens. And the utility is really important. If we don't have energy delivery to your businesses, to your factories, to your home, then everything shuts down throughout the country, right? We just go back to the Stone Age. So it's really, really important to make sure that the utilities are there and they're delivering effectively and reliably energy to you. So I just wanted to share what we're doing. And it's also a fantastic area for collaboration in it. So for utilities, the state and federal government encourages us to share in it. So it's a little different. In other industries, that sharing is called collusion, and you're not allowed to do that in it. But for us, it's collaboration, and again, it's improving, the nation's energy generation and delivery system. So they're, all for it. So it's It's different, and I really, that's one of the things that I like the most about my job, is being able to benchmark and share openly procedures and tools and systems that we use. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move into our agenda and talk about what we're going to talk about. What I want to do is give you a quick overview of Pacific Gas and Electric. Because it's a utility, you might not be familiar with what utilities do besides turning on your switch and the light comes on. Understand the vision for material quality, the programs aimed at enabling the improvement, the key benefits to administering those type of quality programs, and the importance of industry benchmarking and standardization for us. So let's walk through these items. And then when we get to the very end, I encourage you to ask questions. Carol Ann and the group here has got a mic set up here for you when we get to that point. A little bit about PG&E. It's a pretty old company. I don't know if you can see this laser pointer here, but it's been around since 1905. So it's been there delivering energy for a long time. We have about 16 million customers. One of the differences between our customers maybe and yours is that we're selling stuff to them 24/7, 365 days a year. So there's lots of opportunity there for good feedback and negative feedback, even early in the morning. So we cover about 70,000 square miles. It's a big territory from northern to central California. A lot of people there. We have about 23,000 employees, so fairly good size. To the right, energy changing landscape. We're California, so it's very different, highly regulated, and a lot of new and crazy things come out of California. For solar, it's about every 7 seconds someone within our territory is getting rooftop solar. Huge change for us. Electric vehicles all over the place. So everybody's looking, where can I plug in, for energy? So we're like 20% of the nation's electric vehicles are right there. Some of them pretty nice. I don't know if you've ever driven a Tesla, but they're pretty nice vehicles. 30% renewable energy, 55% by 2031. We think we can easily do that in our state. So that's kind of an overview for us. Even just to share how crazy we are about solar, even our utility vehicles for construction and maintenance, we're going to electric vehicles and that. So they're just all over. So a little bit about us. Well, one more thing. Our spend, just to give you an idea what our annual spend is about $5 billion per year. So that's what for our supply base, that's about what we spend annually for developing new infrastructure and maintenance, to give you an idea. Can I take those at the end?
Yeah, just on that slide, there's a question.
Okay, so we'll just remember on that one for 3. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions here too. The vision for material quality, this is the big thing for us, is the safety, reliability, affordability, compliance, and clean. And this is what we talk about every day. And for quality, what we're enabling for safety is that the product design meets the design intent, enabling the system to function safely for employees to be able to install the equipment, and then also for the customers like yourself, to safely use it. For reliability, that the product is defect-free, and that's enabling long life and reliable energy generation and transmission and distribution energy delivery. Affordability is a big thing. You're all paying your monthly utility bill, right? So affordability is a big deal. So for energy generation and transmission and delivery, that's the T&D, delivery systems are constructed and operated at the lowest possible cost. And then compliance. So we have a lot of people that are overseeing us for compliance at a federal level and then also at a state level. So to make sure that our function is to make sure the product meets the design specs and standards, industry and regulatory requirements, and then we certify that in our systems. And then for clean. So we have a lot of systems that need to be updated over time because we use, just like in your factories and your products, we use gases and chemicals that are determined that need to be changed out for emission reasons on it. And California really being one of the most strictest ones, we're going through that process every year of identifying what's the change in, or potential change in regulatory requirements and getting those type of gases and oils and different things out of that equipment by changing them out. So that's how we fit into the clean portion of it. Our quality programs are aimed at enabling improvement. So before we had quality programs, so where were we? And this before means 4 years ago. So our quality control inspectors augmented the supplier's final inspection processes in a continuous loop of inspect, reject, rework, re-inspect, and then still the defects pass through. So we were really inspecting in quality is what we're trying to do. And we weren't doing that very effectively at all. And so we were, unfortunately, as I mentioned here, augmenting the suppliers' processes. So we were ending up replacing their QC organizations with our people. So that was no good. And what it resulted in is 2%. 2% of all the material that engineering ranks as critical or high was coming in and it was non-compliant. So it was either defective, didn't have the right records with it, and so it was very frustrating for the construction folks out in the field, for asset management. They get product out there, it's not right, and they can't use it. And so in California, to get a permit is like pulling teeth, and it's about 5 times more expensive than any permit that you'd pull in other states. So it was very frustrating to them, to be behind on schedule and commitments that they make. We had no quality assurance requirements for suppliers to annually reduce defects and achieve ISO 9001 certification. So that was coming from other industries, that was a huge opportunity there. When you didn't spell that out in the contracts and terms and conditions, what you really had to have. And then leadership had many sleepless nights, concerned material would negatively impact safety, reliability, and affordability. So what was driving that was, and you may have heard this even in other states, but in 2010, we had San Bruno, and so it was a huge gas explosion that we had from an old pipe, and it was so big that we thought a jet airliner crashed. And so it was loss of many lives, and it was really an eye-opening and terrible situation there that changed our behavior and said, look, we have to do things totally different than we've ever done them before. And so we started at that point saying we need to look at the many areas within construction, but also on material quality, and talk about how to improve that for safety, reliability, and affordability. So that was really our call to arms back in 2010 to do things differently. And it's unfortunate, I think we all run into things like that in life, that we run into problems and then we decide, it's time to improve. So we hope that, the world, and other utilities, learn from our errors, right? And then and apply what we've learned. So that's our history of where we were. Now, where are we, today? So this is pretty incredible. I remember in automotive that, we were really happy if we had like a 5 or 7, percent reduction in defects from our supply base, because it was such a mature system, right? We were lucky, to get that. Had to invest a lot. In the 4 years that we've applied quality assurance, so not just QC, but the QA portion of it, we've had a 96% reduction in supplier defects. And what a change in our behavior and our supply base's behavior. It's been just eye-opening, fantastic. Right now, from our supply base, we have a 99.93% defect-free material coming from them, so no added value from our inspection. And now we're having suppliers that have achieved 0 defects for 1 year. So we've never had that before. We've never even heard of anyone in our industry having that. Now we're rated industry leader with top quality performance. Industry leader, who in the world said that? So I don't know if you guys have heard of Dr. Duran. Well, Dr. Godfrey was the right-hand man. They're running the Duran Institute as CEO for more than 10 years. And we were so fortunate to have him come out and evaluate our company and our quality program. So we had him involved in that, and we're able to understand that rating from him. And then we also benchmark with the other utilities to find out how they're doing. First, ISO 9001 certified quality group in the utility industry. Industries are most advanced supplier communication system for change control, material recalls, and quality scorecard. We'll talk a little bit more about each one of these items here in the presentation. What does that mean? What could you learn, from that in your areas? And then rated top performer in supply chain by internal customers. So that's a big deal. And when you have your company in the different operations, say, within supply chain, that out of all the things that you do, we love this the most, right? So that's really helpful, especially when you're doing business cases, right? When the customer is telling you, you get a blank check in it when they do that. So I really appreciate our internal customers for that. And we can't help it, but we save a ton of money every year. So we save about $30 million annually that we can take credit for as an organization. And we don't focus on that. We focus on quality, right? So we really put our blinders on and say we're not really talking about, pricing because we don't want to get distracted by that. But as a side effect, we save about $30 million per year. So that's pretty good because basically that's about 4 times return on investment for my organization. And we do it with 0 related price increases. So we've done everything that I'm talking about today has not cost us a penny with our supply base in it. As a matter of fact, they have saved a ton of money by doing what we're talking about here, and they've gained more business, not only if they apply it correctly within PG&E, but the utilities throughout the U.S. So really, we're all data driven, right? So here's a chart here on how we've been doing since we started applying quality assurance in 2013. So as I mentioned, we had about 2% of everything was no good, and this is equipment ranked critical or high. Which is 19,507 DPPM in it. So the first year we were able, for electric and gas, and that's what those 2 curves are. The 9,700 is the electric, and the 5,200 is the gas. So we were able to basically cut in half all the defects the first year. And much of it was because our suppliers said, look, I just didn't know. I knew, for my equipment, energy came in and energy came out, and you never complained about it. Now that you're complaining, we understand, and we're working at our best pace to address it. So our supply base really embraced this, and we cut all the defects in half. The following year, 2014, same story. So the word, the gospel is getting out to these guys, and they're reacting to it. And then 2015, same thing, cut in half all the defects that we're receiving. 2016, about the same story. You can see that we're starting to, we've really knocked out the super big low-hanging fruit, and we're starting to come down a little bit on our curve. And then 2017, our objective for DPPM was 850 for electric and 950 for gas, but right now we're at 700. So that's why we're 99.93% defect free. So I found that we're really, really good at reducing the defects, but we're terrible at projecting how well we're going to do. So usually I tell my boss, yeah, we'll make a, maybe a 20% year-over-year improvement, and to the best of our ability we project that, and then we end up usually making the 50% improvement. So that's our executives actually look at that and say, well, if you're improving more than what you said, you're sandbagging, right? So they're not too happy about that. So we're good at reducing, but not as good as we should be for projecting. And then when we take into account our inspection, so we're required by regulation to inspect certain equipment. So once we inspect that, and then we get the field reports back, like you might have in your factories, non-conformances that come back from the assembly line from internally or from your customers, we have the same thing back from our gas and electric operations in the field. They'll report back to us if there's a concern. So we can tell that we're near Six Sigma level for it after we do our inspection and get out. Product gets out to the field. And then as we look at where we're at, for our performance in the industry, we're down in the first decile performance. So we're doing good, but again, we have to challenge ourselves and try to dramatically improve each and every year. And then as we look at enabling improvement, one of some of the enablers that we have, I always say it, a team of heroes. So I recognize my group for their unwavering support, and from the unwavering support from our top management. So the folks are, how can you not be encouraged when you make those type of improvements yearly, right? So the team, my team on the left, that's most of them. They're the 46 people in my group. They're just on fire. They're just very excited all the time. And then our executives are also excited about what we're doing, and they support us. The guy in the middle there is Nick Staropoulos, and he's our president of our company. So again, it's very good to align and make sure that those folks at the top understand the value, because really they're the ones that write the checks, right? For if your organization's going to take on more responsibilities. And then so that's what we do is we have our CEO and our president and our senior vice presidents over operations. They're all very excited about what we do and support us with that, with the recognitions of our supply base and our teams. Then also one of the enablers is the ISO certification that we have. Feel that is of critical importance for us to have that type of program. We're certified through Lloyd's Register, and we're really proud of our first time certification of having 0 non-compliances, no majors, no minors. And then we just had our 1-year surveillance, and it's the same thing. So it's nice to know that we're doing as well as we could. And then not only is it important to us to have a certified program, but we have to make sure that our folks are doing the best that they can do. And so one of the things that we look to make sure that our subject matter experts have the tools and knowledge is through ASQ. And so everyone in my group, all the engineers are certified quality engineers, inspectors, or auditors, and or all three. Right? So we've just really went through the process of making sure that they know what they need to know through ASQ, and they really appreciate and value that investment in them. And the last thing I think is pretty unique for quality is that we have, I call it perpetual enterprise systems that are tied to our procedures and KPIs. So we can't help it. The system will drive the people like myself to do better and better every day. And we'll talk more about what does that mean, because I think that's pretty unique. And here is our quality programs and our perpetual machine that we have. So our enterprise system, we work off of SAP. I used to hate SAP years ago. So when I was at Ford, we complained every day about that. And what we've done is we've developed all of our systems that we use internally and with our supply base so that they all feed each other, and our policies and procedures and our key performance indicators are all in this system. And we have just a fantastic IT organization. And so basically, from material inspection, our material problem reports in the field, our material purge system, our supplier corrective actions, our qualified supplier list, our supplier change requests, which is change control, material recalls, our supplier portal, our ISO audits for us and for our supply base, and our supplier scorecard are all tied into SAP. So it's pulling information throughout the company, and it's generating notices to us, notices to our supply base, and our key performance indicators are all live, so we can see and get forecasts and understand how we're doing toward continuous improvement at any point in time. And we report this out every 2 months to our top executives, one over each area for electric, gas, and generation on how we're doing. And we'll talk a little bit more. But I love this. Now I love SAP. So again, I used to hate it. And when it comes to SAP, there's 3 things I wanted to talk about here related to the system is our material recalls, our change control with our supply base, and with our qualified supplier list. So I had a lot of experience at Ford introducing automated change control with the supply base in it. And coming to PG&E, we really didn't have anything that was automated, that had two-way communication with our suppliers. And so it was a great opportunity, when you're starting from nothing, to use the best technology that's out there. And so we did. So we went, and I call this Mr. ESCR because this system is for material recalls and electronic supplier change requests. It's also our supplier scorecard for quality. And I'll just mention, it's so fantastic that that it's being presented this year at the SAP Sapphire Conference. They have an annual global conference, SAP does, and they, just like this, and they invite, I think it's about 8,000 people that show up at this thing. And so they present something that's a breakthrough. Well, this HANA Cloud tied to SAP that we're using for change control with our supply base is a breakthrough. So they're presenting that to the world as a breakthrough, and it really works well for us. Our suppliers are saying user-friendly, works great, getting quick responses on it, and that's only because of buy-in. from the company. So you have to have organizational buy-in to be able to support something like this. So basically, from our supply base, we have they submit a request for change control. I want to change the design. I want to move my plant. I want to change my process, something like that. I've got a material recall, like, oops, I made a mistake, and I need to let you know and get all that, so you can get all that material out of your warehouses. If you used it, dig it up, pull it down, and so forth. And so we get that information, and then we work through asset management, or to get rid of it, or we work through engineering to see if they agree that makes sense for that change. It goes through maintenance and construction. So that's our assembly plant, is maintenance and construction in it. So they just don't have a roof over top of them. And so they look at it and say, oh, for fixtures, tooling, procedures they need to change. They agree, they don't. Material handling, so that's all of our warehousing. Hey, can I use the old stuff first? Do I have to throw it all away? This is the cost. And then it goes back to sourcing. And then for sourcing, they're always looking for the opportunity to price it, right? That's how we end up getting a lot of that $30 million is a supplier wants to make a change. We're going to accommodate it, but sourcing may ask them for something. And then we go back in the process here and say that, yeah, we need to requalify. So we use PPAP. We just call it something different. So we use the production part approval process, and we go back and requalify the supplier's manufacturing process. And then we hold a record for it in our SAP on what the change was, and then it allows the supplier to go forward with the change in it. So we've just implemented this back in October, and it's been, we anticipated, we're a utility, so we're not changing stuff every day, but we anticipated 80 requests annually in it. So we're up to 3 times that amount in just 6 months. So we just didn't realize how often our suppliers were changing stuff, right? And when suppliers change stuff, who gets hit? Quality gets hit, right? So so that's what I learned when I was at Ford, is that we needed to automate, because every day I was getting beat up. So that we could do well here at PG&E, we implemented this system, and again, it's gained executive buy-in pretty quick. But I always tell my kids that, yeah, Dad's pretty smart about the cloud. He knows about the cloud, because we use the HANA cloud, which is the most advanced cloud in the world. So that's what I tell him. I know something about that. One of the other items I wanted to mention is our qualified supplier list. So I have an ISO audit, QMS audit group, and we go around the world. Our suppliers are from everywhere. And so we go and perform about 90 ISO compliance audits annually, and that really expedites new equipment. So we have just new equipment that's needed, new designs every day. There's just such advancing technology that we go around and do these qualifications, and that's huge in utility space, to go out and do 90 annually. So usually most utilities will contract that out. They'll go to the problematic ones. Maybe they'll do 10 a year in it. So we're just doing the auditing every year, because we have about 1,100 suppliers, but about 650 of them are ranked critical or high. And we're trying to work up to where we can hit all of those. And we track in our SAP qualified supplier list, we track the nonconformities, what material is approved for that supplier, for that site. And that's really what helps us as a company to keep it straight as far as which supplier is approved, for which products, for which locations in it. So we work very closely with our engineering organizations to keep track of this. Benefits of administering a quality program, from a supply chain. So supplier quality is within supply chain. within our company. Other companies I've been at have been very similar. And what we've found is that for these many suppliers around the world is that if we have high quality, we end up delivering on time in full, right? So that's very important if you're out there doing construction, keeps them happy. We have a lot lower risk to asset management and customer satisfaction. So we can look at that and start to gauge that. What does that mean for asset management? What does that mean for customer satisfaction? Significant supplier improvements we've had. So that's as I've shown in the other charts, it's very exciting for us, especially when we get a chance to recognize them for that. We've eliminated 2% plus of material arriving as non-compliant. Huge amount of money, huge amount for us to be able to address that. 30 million in savings across the company, and deep sleep at night. So that's where we had a lot of executives that really, I mean, it really kept them awake thinking that something could happen. And what that means to us when we get fines. So we had, for San Bruno, I think we had about $4 billion in fines. It's a lot of money. So that's that helps them, you know, to understand what we're doing that's right, and then how that's mitigating issues, mitigating costs, and so they're much more relaxed about quality. So it's really a good thing. And then industry benchmarking and standardization. So it's so key, as you know, for benchmarking your companies with other companies. We're so fortunate to be able to benchmark with other utilities openly because we don't compete, right? So that is so nice to be able to do that. So we benchmark with the top 10 utilities in the U.S. For quality programs and enterprise systems. We do that a lot through, my boss is a vice president over supply chain, so he has some great connections. He's been able to pull in the other utilities to be able to do this. We benchmark all the time. And it really helps us as far as efficiency. So the next thing we're working on here is just like in the nuclear industry, they create a utility forum so that why have 10 utilities go and audit one supplier? Why can't you just send one utility to audit them and then share that information that yes, they're compliant, what a savings that would be. So we're working through that only because we're in utility space that we can do that, and it's based off of NUPIC, which is the nuclear side model that they're doing. So we're having utilities sign up for that to try to gain efficiencies and better sharing. But we believe that this is, in the end, we believe this benchmarking, it standardizes and improves the quality of our nation's energy delivery system. So it's really important for each one of us. And it's just something we really enjoy. High organization. Talk a little bit about that. Most organizations in the utility area have maybe a supplier quality person or two in projects. So as they launch new projects, they'll throw a person or two, but they're really not. We don't have in other utilities a supplier quality assurance organization in it, and so we're very fortunate to have 46. 46, just to give you an idea, that's about what most utilities have for headcount in their entire sourcing organization. So when I speak and tell other VPs in sourcing that we have 46, they just can't believe it, that we have that many people tied to that. It's hard for them to understand why. But we cover everything within our utility minus nuclear. So nuclear, I've worked to develop nuclear fuel, so it is underneath different standards and the cost is much more for quality. So we handle that out of Diablo Canyon, but everything else for the company, hydro, solar, fossil fuel, our metering, gas and electric T&D is all out of my organization. And I break it down here for a manager over each area. And basically for our SQA engineers, they handle the process qualifications at the suppliers, continuous improvement KPIs, our field complaints, and our scorecard. Same thing for gas. Then I also have a manager over our auditing activities and our records clerks, so we have to hold a lot of records in SAP. And then last, but certainly not least, our biggest organization is inspection, with Ramon heading that up. And we have about 19 people in our QC department. And so it's one of those things where by regulatory requirements, we have to have this done. It works really well, and all of their information as far as lot numbers and all that all goes in SAP, and that's what really helps us to track our suppliers improving or not, and getting that stuff online, for them. So they're able to see that through our scorecard and our Mr. ESCR website. So that's my organization there, and we've went from when I started on, it was as I said, it was just a QC organization. There was probably about a dozen people in the group. So we went from about a dozen people 4 years ago to 46. And so again, you just have to have the business cases, I think, to be able to drive that, to show what the value is. And what we do with for our executives, so our executives always want to know, what's the return on my investment, for you guys? What are you guys doing for me? And so we sit down every 2 months to talk to our top leaders over each organization there for gas and electric and generation. And we go through our agreed upon key performance indicators, which includes DPPM, the defective parts per million. It talks about SCAR responses. It talks about what we're doing for our quality programs, how we're improving. It talks about our technology roadmap. So one of the big things for them is they need new designs. They need to get them in, to answer different issues that they have. So that's one of the big things that we talk about is how are we doing on supplier and product qualifications for that new technology over the next 18 months. And that's been hard for our company, is to figure out that technology roadmap. So that's what we use to draw them out. Like, hey, we want to qualify it, but you got to tell us what you want, so we can line them up. And then we talk about risks, challenges, and opportunities. So that's where I let them know what the ask is. I need this from you. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to get this funded. Or here's the opportunity in it. So we're able to share at an executive vice president level what's going on in it. And it's that important to them, where they'll take an hour out of their day, once every 2 months to find out how we're doing and to assess those things. So that's how we align with our executive leadership. And then we also have a service level agreement in it. So this is really important for us to make sure that our lines of business know what inputs we require for them, so that we can have these outputs. So this is like our guarantee, that if you provide these things, that you give me these kind of notices, then I will deliver these kind of things, coming out of it. And of course, cost is part of that. And I always say, I'll manage that variance up to 10%. So if you're going to do something that's going to require more resources, more something, I'll absorb up to 10%. But when we go over that, you're going to have to write a bigger check. And so that's what they expect for continuous improvement, that we're able to absorb some of that. So I outline that, and I tell them over here on the right what that's going to cost them and resources to be able to do those functions. And so we go through that and reevaluate annually, but we sign it every 3 years. So it's like a contract. with them. So we have vice presidents sign that to make sure that we're in alignment, that they hold us accountable, and we're able to hold them accountable, through this service level agreement. So it's really handy. Supplier scorecard. So this has been such a super tool for quality, and we've really changed how we're doing things here, and we use this scorecard every 6 months with our key suppliers on it, and it's a two-way communication. So we give them a score, and they give us a score, and you know what? We haven't got to the point yet where we're performing as well as our supply base is. So this is new for us, but it's good. It's good. It really points out a lot of opportunities for us as a company when you have two-way communication. But basically, what happens at the first 6 months, we warn or congratulate them on it. So hey, you've met the metrics, you've exceeded the metrics, you're not meeting the metrics. And then we tell them what that means. So we have a 3-year contract with them. And then we say, look, every year, we got a 3-year contract, but every year we're going to reevaluate the business. So if you're overperforming, you're probably going to get more business. And for those that are underperforming, you know what, we need to help you, to be able to focus and put more resources on what you're doing. So we're just going to reduce our allocation to you so it'll free up time, so that you can focus better, on doing better. What a huge difference that makes when you give that warning and then you fulfill it, annually. And so it changes the whole game. So we've had, for quality, in the beginning, we had suppliers where we said, we're going to help you by eliminating 100% of your sales to us, and that's like, maybe $20 million. So that's the point where people get fired, right? So they lose that much business. So it's an eye opener for them. They're like, oh my goodness, I guess we better do something different. And so they started applying resources in the right area, to overcome that. So in a lot of places I've been, quality's never had that kind of influence on the supply base to say, game's over, business is done. But that's what we've applied here, and wow, that's one of the reasons why we've improved 96%, is because we use money in it to influence them, and it works. So we annually recognize the top performers. To keep myself straight, I have a supplier qualification manual. It's our agreement with suppliers on how we'll work together. So it's based on PPAP on it. So the production part approval process, we call it something different. It's about 46 pages. We put it out on our external website. All of our letters that we send to suppliers, we give them the web link. And it also goes out, the potential suppliers can look at it. And it's like, okay, if I want to be a PG&E supplier, what do I have to do to get qualified? Well, they can go to this how-to book to do that. Or if they mess up, then they can go to this how-to book and see, how to recover. So that's one of the ways, put it in writing, make sure it's easy to access. And then when they do have errors, point it out to them where to go to resolve it. And then we can always say, it's in writing, it's in our contract, that you have to do this. We also have a quality management manual, and that's what I use to keep myself in check. And it really says, how do I relate to the other internal departments in the company? How do I relate to engineering standards? How do I relate to project management? How do I relate, to finance and all those other guys? And so it keeps me straight and standardized and accountable for what I do. And so I use that. And then annual supplier requirements letter. Every year, we have to remind our supply base what's our goal. So we thank them for the 25 or 50% year-over-year improvement that we had in quality, congratulate them. Then we let them know what the expectation is for that new year. We expect you to hit this level, is a 3. and there's benefits of overachieving and there's, consequences of underachieving. So we let them know that. We remind them of our qualification processes, what we require them to do for sub-supplier control, any new systems like Mr. ESCR, and then our vision for zero defects. And then we recently told our suppliers that, we're ISO certified now, my group is. So if the customer can do it, you can do it. And so we've told our supply base for critical and highs that they have to be ISO 9001 certified by the end of next year. And otherwise, the contract that we have is void, with them. So we've audited most of our suppliers, so we know that they're doing pretty good on that. Terms and conditions, what a fantastic tool. I think this is one of my favorite tools because it spells out exactly what our quality requirements are. I wrote this for sourcing. The biggest section out of our terms and conditions is quality. And what we do in my group, I quiz my group on what's in the terms and conditions in it because they have to go back to our supplier's quality group and their manufacturing operations and be able to quote this stuff. That your account manager signed this and you're accountable to this. And so they know this by heart, what's in those requirements in it, because sometimes the account managers for our supply base doesn't go back and check with manufacturing operations and their quality groups, can you meet this, right? So sometimes they have that gap. And so this is very handy to know what's in that contract. So we use that also as a major tool. Our policies and procedures that we have a lot of procedures and manuals and standards in it because if we didn't, we wouldn't be standardized. We wouldn't be able to follow what we do, each and every day and deliver, a consistently good service. So we have this. This is what I also share with the other utilities in it because we can collaborate on it, on what we do. And when we share, we hope that people will say, well, there's a better way, right? But I read it and there's a better way. So we get that benefit, out of sharing. And then, today is in, any day, I always have an open invitation, to benchmark, with us. So we look for the utilities, to do this here in the U.S. and around the world, to be able to share our programs that we have, our system technology. We can't give you, the data, that's in it because that's from our suppliers and it's proprietary. But the systems, we can always share, what that programming is for those systems. And we always invite them to join our forum. We haven't kicked it off yet. We've got like 3 major suppliers in it. One of which is Duke. So Duke is right here for North Carolina, many other states supplying the energy. So Duke is one of our big benchmark utilities, as in others. And so we always say, let's improve the quality of the nation's energy delivery systems together. And so I want to end and offer up time here for questions. I do want to point out if you have the ASQ app on your iPhone, there's also some 3 questions I had in there. So if you'd also take a look at those 3 questions. Those 3 questions are very important to us. It's about asking you, do you have suppliers that deliver 0 defects for 1 year? So we're trying to figure that out. One of the other questions I've got on there is related to equipment that you purchase with the potential of having malicious malware on it. So do you have supplier strategies, to combat that through NIST 800 or ISO 27002 or something? So that's kind of new. We have fantastic systems once we bolt everything in place. But we're asking about what about the equipment that you procure that has lots of microprocessors in it? Is there a methodology or control strategy that you have with your suppliers to make sure nothing's embedded, in those microprocessors? So we're asking about that, and you can see those on there. But I appreciate the time here to share this with you, and would like to open it up for questions.
So we have 4 minutes for questions.
Hi, I'm Christy Mesher. I'm a certified quality engineer at Con Edison. I work in the distribution engineering department within electric operations. And like you, I started off in a different industry. I spent 7 years in medical devices where we had a very rigorous supplier quality process, and now I'm taking those lessons learned and applying them at Con Edison. So this was a fantastic presentation, and I look forward to connecting with you for benchmarking. My question is, what was your strategy for engaging the lines of business, the construction teams, the mechanics in supplier quality? Because something we're kind of working through right now.
Right. Yeah, thank you for asking that question, and I would enjoy talking more about it too afterward. The strategy to them was talking about the numbers. So the numbers of material problem reports that they have out in the field. So first talk about, this is where you've said it's a material quality issue, and this is how much it's cost you. You've had like 400 occurrences, and to dig something up or pull something down, huge expense. So to talk to them about those type of issues and those related expenses, and then to help them also understand, is it a material quality issue or is it an assembly quality issue? So there was a lot of confusion, in that area, because a lot of the material assembly issues they even thought were maybe design concerns, and they blame engineering for it. So we were able to elaborate to them a lot in the service level agreement, what we'll do for you and why you need that based on numbers coming back from the field. You're welcome. Sir?
Hi. I have actually 2 questions if you have time. The first question is, when you talk about your supplier, you're talking about upstream supplier, the ones that they supply you with pipes and generators and transformers and circuit breakers and stuff like that, not the downstream contractors that they actually build your projects.
Correct. So right now, what we're talking about is the material suppliers, but the construction suppliers, so that perform an assembly service, what we're saying to the company, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So this process that we use to control supplier assembly can be applied to construction assembly. And so our executives are right now are thinking, this. They're saying, Jim, when are you going to come up with a plan for the construction assembly? So I actually owe them, because they look at this and they ask the same question. Why is this not a carryover? Why are you not addressing this already? And I'm like, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. It's just going to take time.
And my second question is, in EPC environment, I know PG&E does a lot of EPC, engineering, procurement, construction.
Yeah.
And so what's your approach to supplier quality in the EPC environment?
In the EPC side, because PG&E isn't directly procuring the material, so on the EPC is a company is determined to be just like us. They do the engineering, the procurement, and the construction. So they can do it. If we don't have capacity, or maybe they can do it better, let them. But what about that material that they're buying? So we have right now, we've been using paper documents to say to them what's an approved supplier, and it hasn't been adequate. And so we're working to change from engineering standards, sharing that to our SAP QSL. Mm-hmm. And the EPCs will have ability to view our QSL on which suppliers are approved for which material codes, which plant addresses in it. So we're working to get more defined, in that area, because we have errors. So we see that EPCs sometimes make mistakes. After they assemble it, the company owns it, right? We have to run that. So we're getting ready to change our contracts with EPCs because of that. And in the meantime, we're having a lot of dialogue, with them. But that's a gap in it, because we don't directly procure the material. My boss doesn't directly procure that material, but we're working to address that gap this year.
Yeah, we deal with the same thing, because the EPC contractor is on the hook for few years for the warranty, but we have to own it and maintain it for the next 50 years.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we feel it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, we are out of time. I think Jim will be here, right?
I'll be here. Yeah, you can.
I do want to take a moment to remind you to use the app and the evaluation piece on that app for this session to evaluate it. And let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. I also like to give a big applause for Carol Ann. I mean, she did a great job. But